Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New subscribers only. Renew for 12 months to lock in savings. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host, Tony Evans. This week's episode is inspired by the forthcoming solo album, the 7th solo album by Bruce Dickinson, the lead singer of Iron Maiden. It comes out next year in 2024. So I thought what I'd do is I'd go back and rank his 6 episodes from 1 to 5. No particular order of how I like them, or how you might like them. But I just think this is what they sort of mean to me in 1 to 5. There is a glaring omission on the 6th album, but we'll talk about that later on in the show because it's something that I really want to talk about. But we'll start with number 5 and we'll go through to number 1. Now, they won't be as in-depth on each album as they usually are because I've got to get through 5 albums in the time slot. I don't want to bore you too much. So we'll start with number 5, which is his second solo album, and his first solo album when he had left the band in 1993. It's Iron Maiden, that is. It's Balls to Picasso. It's number 5 for me because I think, along with the other one, which we will name later on, is probably one of his weakest albums, musically, thematically, and I think he's a little lost in this particular album. I think he's trying to throw off the shackles of Iron Maiden, and it doesn't seem to have really paid off. It did poorly in the charts. It's not an album that I go back to regularly, unfortunately. It is quite a meaty album. It's a very American-sounding album. I think he was trying to be more, the way that Def Leppard sort of went that way post their new album movement breakout when they went and become very American. One of the reasons why I don't listen to later Leppard albums is they're a bit too rock and roll for me. And they're not enough heaviness. Anyway, it does. It's got some moments on it. There have been Cyclops, which is the opening track, and the second one, Hell No, and then Gods of War. The first 3 tracks are pretty good. I mean, I find particularly Cyclops is a song that I will go back to and repeat on the album. And then, of course, maybe the lead single off it, which is Tears of a Dragon, which is very sing-along. A good Maiden-esque kind of sound. It's a bit thin, and it's a little bit. It sort of suffers from the CD era, unfortunately, where the sound wall is higher, and let's get 12 tracks on an album when 10 will probably do, and that's why there's a bit of filler and not all killer on this album, I think, as well. He sort of playing around with musical styles, as a little bit of new metal sounding in it, which is something I find really unlistenable most of the time. He's also trying to sing in a register that's too much and high for him. He's at that time once he'd left Maiden, it started getting his voice getting a bit overused because he tied himself out with the touring with Maiden up to that point. That's why he got a bit tetchy with the band and why he left. And so he sort of was a bit burnt out. And I think after the after this is his second album, after the first album, Tattooed Millionaire, which we'll talk about again later on, which was completely thematically different to anything he'd ever done. He's trying to get back to his metal roots with this album, and it just seems a little bit, I don't know, a little bit teenager for me. I think the 5 albums that I'm going to talk about do sound like a young man growing out of, like, leaving home. Really does. But it's like Maiden is his home, and he's left home, and he's made, he's making a start. And it just feels, I don't know, a little bit like, I went and bought it when it came out, and, I played it a handful of times. I don't really go back to it. If someone asks me what they think of what albums would you choose for Bruce Dickinson solo albums, this wouldn't be one of them. That's why it's in at number 5. But again, it's all taste, it's all relevant. This top 5 list actually is also co-produced in the list by Matt, my good friend Matt. We both talked about our top 5, and we exactly the same. It was in exactly the same order and for exactly the same reason, which I thought was really, really fascinating, actually. Great minds think alike. Hey, Matt. The album cover, again, also is a little bit, because Maiden never really put the band on the front, was always driven by Eddie, and the first 2 albums, Tattoo Millionaire and this one, have him on the front. And whether I know he's a sexy looking man, but the albums themselves, apart from Tattoo Millionaire, I think Balls to Picasso is a bit, I don't know, it's a bit last minute. It was the biggest budget of the solo albums it was bigger budgeted than Tattoo Millionaire, which was only recorded in 2 weeks. So I had more time for this one, but it's still, I think it feels like it's been overproduced and underthought. And I don't think he plays any of the stuff from it. Maybe I think he does occasionally play Tears of a Dragon in his solo work, but I think mainly more his later stuff from his later solo albums. So that's number 5, Balls to Picasso. Right now, in at number 4 comes Tyranny of Souls, released in 2005. Well, he was back with Iron Maiden. This one, like the next 3, could all really be in the top 2, to be fair. It's a very tricky list to do. There's 2 albums that I absolutely don't like, and I've just mentioned one of them, really, and one we won't name until later on in the show. Those are keen listeners and know his catalogue or know the album I'm going to talk about, I'm sure, because you'll work it out by the time I get there. But Tyranny of Souls, 2005. Now, it's the cover of the album is, again, we move away from pictures of Bruce and we get some artwork, which we do love. We made albums and Brucey stuff. And it's it is, now I wrote this down, Earthly Vanity and Divine by Klaus Melming. It looks like something done by Holbein or something. It's his first album since rejoining the band in 1999, and it does have a real maiden-y feel to it, to me. There's some really good tracks on it. Title track is loosely based on Macbeth, and that's very much a thing that Brucey would do, and something we love. And I think what he did in the first 2 albums, and maybe even the first 3 albums, he's sort of trying to get away from, it felt to me, he was getting away from the progressiveness and the literal heaviness in both words, metaphor and sound of Maiden. And I think he realises that that's where his love lies, really, it does. I mean, he's a big Jethro Tull fan, he loves Van der Graaf Generator, yes, we talked about this before on the show. And he wrote a brilliant. I love it when he's using, when you're learning with Maiden, right, or Brucey as well. Kill Devil Hill is inspired by the Wright brothers' first successful flight in 1903, and he loves his flight and flying. It's another great track on it, Navigate the Seas of the Sun, which is inspired by Eric von Daniken's theory of extraterrestrials present on Earth long ago. Also about a man working that out in the future. It's so Bruce, it's so Maiden, it's sort of thing that really, honestly, possibly Steve Harris would have written. I mean, it does have Adrian Smith on it, And so that probably does help. And those that listen to this podcast for the first time who are Iron Maiden virgins, Adrian Smith was the guitarist, and is the guitarist of Iron Maiden. They left at the same time that Bruce did and came back the same time Bruce did. Around the same time Bruce did. Anyway, it feels musically right. It sort of sits really well with Chemical Wedding and Accident of Birth. It's a real Dickinson's album. His voice here, he's not attacking it vocally with, again, like he's done in the later Maiden albums, the 2000 albums, where he was a little bit too high in the register and key, and he can't hold it anymore. He's got a wonderful, wonderful voice. We love Bruce's voice with a passion, don't we? But it is still, it's not the siren it used to be. It, if you listen to those sort of late 90s, early 2000 Maiden albums, he does have a strangeness. Like he feels like he's trying to break free of his vocal abilities, but not embracing the ones he does have. And that's where I think some of those later, as I talked before last week, some of those Millennium Maiden albums fall flat for me. Plus also the recording. I just think I just don't like the sound. It's that CD, as I mentioned earlier, the wall of sound CD thing where it's just louder, more. Just because you've got the medium to put it on doesn't mean you should put it on it. Anyway, that's a different story, right? I've written here, it's much more rememberable album than Picasso, right? But it's not an album again that I do remember being frothing at when it came out. 2005 is some time ago now. And, my kids were quite young, and we just moved to Australia. I think about been here 7 years or so far away from the scene, and been very excited when it came out because it was it was a Brucey album. Wow, it's Dickinson. Let's get it. Love the artwork. Really, to be honest, I really like the singles off of it. And I thought, this is going to be an absolute cracker of an album, and it still is. It still has a heaviness. It's not as meaty maybe as Balls to Picasso, but it has that real sort of progressive maidenly sound. He sort of brought it with him a bit, and he's used a few producers in the time. Roy Z, who's worked with a lot of people. He's worked a couple of albums with Roy Z on guitar and production. He's used lots of people. As I said, I'm not going to go into depth of production and people on the albums. I just want to talk about how I rank them and why I rank them. We'll go back and do them in more depth, possibly in later episodes. If people would like to hear that, please let me know. Put it in the comments below on Spotify, or come to my Facebook page and leave a message there. Whatever way you want to do it. Let me know if you want me to do it more in depth with them. But it's a more polished. I think that's where it comes from. Balls to Picasso felt like, as I said, that teenager leaving home, right? He's left home with Tattooed Millionaire. He's moved in possibly with a girlfriend. She's buggered off. He's left paying the rent. He's on his own. He's got a mate in. They're getting pissed all the time, watching horror movies and porn or whatever they do. I don't what we did when we were teenagers, and getting stoned and being stupid. But whereas Balls to Picasso feels like a bit like he's sort of waking up a little bit. And he's like, this isn't what I want to do with my life. I can't keep doing this all the time. And then Tyranny of Souls is a bit more like, and this is where my analogy gets mixed up, because all three, Tyranny of Souls, Accident of Birth, and Chemical Wedding, could be that next stage of his growth, right? Because it feels they're all very, very similar. They're almost like a 3-album story release, even though they're not, right? It is more educated, more thoughtful, and none of his solo albums made lots of money. I'm sure they made him enough money, but they didn't make him big chart success. He's not a chart success kind of guy, right? He's not getting number ones. He's not getting, although he did do very, very well with the lead singles off of Tattooed Millionaire, but we'll talk about that later on. So that for me, I like the fact that you get a little bit of the old Maiden education out of it with this one, right? It is, as I said, it feels a little less rushed, a bit more meaty. It's 53 minutes in length. So, a little bit long. I mean, I like my albums to sit in around about 40, 45, 38 to 45. Sometimes, you can overstretch it. But there were some great musical interludes in this particular album. There is some beautiful lyricism in it. Great, particularly, standouts, absolute standouts for me, definitely Tyranny of Souls and Navigate the Seas of the Sun. Why not have a bit of moment of education? And also, just the lyric. I mean, he has a brilliant way of writing. Everyone thinks of Steve being the best writer in the band, but lyrically. But I think that Brucey knows his voice. Brucey knows his limits, and he also is a very educated man, and he's very smart and funny, and he writes really good lyrics. And I think this, for me, is definitely one of my. It's like, as I said, it's a difficult one to put into a level area, right? Then we come to number 3, Accident of Birth, 1997, 4th studio album. It was released on the 3rd of June 1997, and it's a second album with the collaboration with Roy Z, as I mentioned before, guitarist and producer, and joined by Adrian Smith here for a few tracks, both returning back to Maiden in 1999, 2 years later. This one is one of my joys. It's one of my that I have on vinyl. I've got them all on vinyl, but there are a couple of reissues because they weren't released on vinyl originally. I really enjoy going back to this one. I often pull it out if I'm having a Maiden night, and it's the sort of probably the one I'll put on first. That means you should say, why, Tony, is it not number 1? Well, because, as I said before, it's very tricky, this top 3 for me. And the top number 1 is, you'll know why it's number 1, and I'll come to exactly why it's number 1. You'll go, I understand, Tony, when you get to the number 1 slot. And it's not what you think it is. Anyway, the art's by Derek Riggs, i.e. Maiden's Wonder Kid in the art. Wonderful to have him back. It was controversially produced. In the UK, it's got the jester bursting out of the chest of a man lying flat on his back, quite gory, quite controversial. And in Europe, it was banned, and so they had to do a different cover of him. Just basically, they cropped the head off, so all you see was the body. In the US, same similar thing happened. They just basically put a side view of him on coming out. I've got a couple of copies of the different album covers. My favourite one, though, is one they used for the reissue in 2005, which is the Jester puppet nailed to a cross, which was the Japanese single for... they used the art for the single off the album, and I've got to find the name of that single because I've gone... Where is it? I wrote this down. Man of Souls. And I get a little bit annoyed with, art controversy and music controversy. You walk into a gallery and you can stand there looking at the most profane and erotic and pornographic stuff you can possibly shake a stick at, right? And it's art, isn't it? Oh, all right. Holbein painted it, therefore it's okay. But we put stuff out there, and you can take your kids to that gallery. There's no thing saying no children in this gallery. I must admit, when I took my kids to the galleries, I used to whiz them past certain pieces of art, not because I didn't want them to see it, because I was Englishman and I'm a bit embarrassed, to be honest. I don't have to explain it to them. Anyway, so what is it? I really find it very frustrating that the original artist's concept has to be twisted and thrown away and edited because of the sentiments and safety of a certain level of the public. Anyway, that's rant over. Shoebox off a horse. I've got off my horse. It was quite high, wasn't it? It did very well. It got to number 3 in the charts, actually, which is pretty good for this album. His solo albums haven't been that productive in chart-wise. Musically, I think it's close to one of my favourites on the list. As I said, that's why I bring it out first. It's infectious, like the guitar parts in Star Children. I've written a juggernaut, and Bruce knows how to bring a bloody catchy number out. He can really knows how to get that sing-along going, and Star Children for me is the standout sing-along part of the album. It really, really is. Its tonal balance is a little hot for me. Sometimes it's a little flat, if that's what I'm trying to say. It's got a very progressive tone, which is what I absolutely love. Right, its concepts, its stories, like the title track, "Accident of Birth." What a brilliant concept! It's about a family in hell itself, who have a baby accidentally, a love child, or what my dad used to call beer baby, and which is sadly what my dad used to call me. Anyway, actually, my older brother used to call me beer baby more than dad. And that child leaves hell, and then they're trying to get him back. They're trying to get him back into hell to join the family again, but he's going, "I'm not going back there. You're horrible, and it's hell." And it's songs like lyric like "Opening the Gate" and inviting him in. It's just brilliant. I think, where was he going with that one? I mean, what part of his life did that happen? That was just a wonderful, delicious story for me. Tracks like "Freak," "Star Child," "Dark Side of Aquarius," "Man of Souls," "The Magician." They're just absolutely just brilliant, brilliant tracks for me. One second, what have I done? Oh yes, pressing the wrong button. I meant "Man of Sorrows." I keep saying "Man of Souls." My bloody handwriting, and I know that song so well. It's like just an old man moment again. Anyway, "Man of Sorrows," which was the single in Japan. That's it for me. I think it's a delicious start. If you're going to play these albums in order, and you go, "Tony, I'm going to listen to your albums, your suggestions, and play them in order," you could, in theory, drop this to number one quite happily, I think. Particularly on the reissue, with some of the extra stuff that comes out on it, some of the really extra tracks on there that really do make the album quite a brilliant start to the evening. But I would definitely say that for me it sits quite comfortably in at number 3. We'll talk about number 2 when I come back in the second half. Number 1, because I want to talk about number 1 quite a bit, and the number album I have missed out on the list, but I want to talk about anyway. I'm just going to go warm my tea up, and I'll talk to you on the other side, guys.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New subscribers only. Renew for 12 months to lock in savings. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Spring, is that you? Warmer temps mean new Allbirds styles. Meet the Superlight Collection, the lightest ever shoes from Allbirds, now in fresh colors. They've designed must-have travel styles for when you need to jet. The lighter-than-air feel and barely-there fit make these shoes some of the most packable styles ever. That means more comfort and less baggage. Take the Superlight Tree Runner on your next adventure. Its cushy, lightweight foam midsole supports every step, and the extra outsole traction gives you the grip to just go for it. The eucalyptus fiber upper adds next-level breathability to keep you going all day. Plus, the Superlight Tree Runner is comfortable and ready to go right out of the box. So, what can you do in a Superlight shoe? What can't you do is the better question. And because they're super packable, The real question is, where are you taking them? Experience how Allbirds redefines comfort. Visit allbirds.com and use code SUPER24 for a free pair of socks with a purchase of $48 or more. That's ALLBIRDS.com, code SUPER24.
Bye for now. Welcome back to the show, guys, to the rundown of Bruce Dickinson's top 5 albums, Tony Evans' opinion. Again, this is purely my opinion. You can say what you want. I'd love to know your, if you've listened to the albums a lot, what your top 5 is. And if you're going to listen to them all, and then tell me what you think the top 5 is if you haven't listened to them. If you haven't listened to them, where have you been? You living under a rock? No, I'm only joking, guys. Just being silly. So, in at 2 is quite comfortably Chemical Wedding. Came out in 1998, just before he returned back to Maiden. Chemical Wedding, right. Where do we start with this piece of music? This sits quite comfortably in the pantheon. This could easily be a Maiden album. Now, I think it's his most accomplished solo album. It's based on the works, poetry and art of William Blake, an 19th century painter and poet. The picture on the front, I've got a little story about this picture on the front. So on the the cover art is a large picture of William Blake's painting the ghost of a flea. Now, I was going through, when I was at art college, a real Blake phase, particularly sort of around the early 90s. And this is well before he'd released this album. And I went to an exhibition of William Blake's work. And up on the wall there, I'd always seen the picture of a ghost of a flea in books. And I thought it was absolutely massive, this picture. I thought, wow, it's going to be really big. And when I saw it in the gallery, it was tiny. It's about the size of, I don't know how to say, like a postcard size. A bit smaller even. And it really blew me away how much detail he put in such a small picture. It's quite a dark picture, very much. Blake's was very into his prophecies, and he's deeply religious man, and he was into cults and all sorts of things. And on this album, there's lots of spoken word that's from Blake, but the standout for me is Jerusalem, which is a hymn, and I actually really, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I really love, I'm not Christian, I don't go to church, I've told you before, I'm of the Judaic faith, and not that I practice it, but I really find English hymns, particularly 18th century English hymns, truly beautiful, and really, really beautiful, and Jerusalem is one of them for me. And I have to tell you, I first heard it on a Monty Python record, actually. I think it might be the Matching Tie and Handkerchief set. Could be. Anyway, I had to go to church with my father. My father would go to church regularly, not with us, but he would go. And one day we went, I don't know what for, maybe a Harvest Festival or something like that. And it made us go along, and they played Jerusalem, and it just filled me with this sense of pride of being British. It was you can see why they play it in the rugby and at the football. It almost, to me, is an English national anthem, along with, I just think it would make the best national anthem for me, along with Land of Hope and Glory without sounding... I know it's been abducted by the skinheads and sort of racists and fascists of the world, unfortunately, but it really is a great song. And the lyric in Jerusalem, did those feet in ancient times walk upon England's mountains? It's basically what it means. It's what he's saying is that there is a concept, an idea, a legend that Christ did come to the Isles of England with John the Baptist when he was fleeing the Romans, and that's what that lyric is basically about. Is did Jesus walk upon England? These green and pleasant lands, and he it has been done before, of course. Emerson, Lake and Palmer have done it on brain salad surgery, but this version is a lot more close to the original and more accessible, and I think more beautiful, in fact, actually. There's a few there. There's a few epic songs on it. The title track itself is derived from the now, baby, careful when I say this correctly. I'll put my teeth in. Hang on, my teeth are in. The Rosicrucians Manifesto, Chemical Wedding of the Christiana of Christian Rosencrantz. Now, I have probably murdered that, but the Rosicrucians are a religious sect, basically. Again, go and read anything by Dan Brown, or watch the movies based on his books. They talk about the Rosicrucians, and it's again, he did the same thing with Maiden when he did the song. Hang on, Tony Evans, get Old Man Brain. Hit the mic. With the... Wait 1 second, I'm going to pause. On Dance of Death, he did Monsignor, which is about the Cathars. Very similar kind of thing, right? A religious sect that the Catholic Church did not take kindly to. Sorry about the old man thing there. Brain went completely fizzle then. So yes, it's the album that I probably grab second. In fact, I've got it right behind me on my record deck, sort of to go tonight. I've planned to listen to that tonight again, and it really is a special album because it feels just like it's the album I wish that they had made instead of, and I'm going to get myself crucified for this, for things like Matter of Life and Death, right? An album that's got it's got Book of Souls, it's got that written all over it. It's so textured and layered and intellectual and interesting. It was now people get confused here because Bruce wrote the script for a film called Chemical Wedding that was released in 2008. Nothing to do with the album concepts at all. It was about the resurrection of Aleister Crowley. And if you don't know who Aleister Crowley is, check him out. I've listened to my shows in the past. I've talked about him. Considered the most evil man in the world, an occultist. Obviously, we all know that the wonderful Ozzy Osbourne has written a song about him. So I don't have to talk about him anymore. We know about him completely. But it does mix beautifully with the concepts that Dickinson loves. I mean, even though this album has got nothing to do with Aleister Crowley on it, it does feel it because it's got the concepts of what he said this album was about. And I've read an article about. He said that each song is sort of loosely put to, based on things like loss, fear, hatred, union, tragedy. All these sort of things that he sort of and he said that it's such a complex lyrical album that each listener, this is his words, each listener will hear something different, and that's why I'm not willing to really try and break each song down here because it's a whole episode that I'd want to talk to you about. But it is. It's. You can see it's his. For me, one of his last hurrahs before he went back with the band. As I said, growing up like a teenager, this feels like he's leaving the squat. For instance, he's got a good job, and he's moving in with a nice girl, nice boy, whatever you choose your sexual preference here. Input there. ... And he sort of found his niche. He's gone to IKEA and bought the furniture and the plates and the towels, and he's sort of, getting glee and joy out of buying toilet cleaner. That kind of thing in life. He's grown up, basically. Maybe thinking about children even. Who knows? That's what it feels like. It feels like he's in educate, or he's gone back. No, he's more like he's gone back to university because he realises that he dropped out too soon. It sounds a bit like my life, to be fair. It could be me. And this probably is me. That's probably why I've put him in the top 5 like that. This is how my life went, right? So, we're now going to jump into... I want to give more to the album, but I really want to talk about number 1. What will it be? What will it be? Well, I'll tell you, it isn't Skunk Works, people. That is not the case. It's going to be Tattooed Millionaire. Now, I'm sure people are rolling their eyes and going, what do you mean, Tattooed Millionaire? Isn't that one of the weakest of his solo albums? And I'll stare down the barrel at you and say, possibly, and possibly not. Now, this is his I've left home and run away with a bin liner full of clothing album. Really. It really is. It's full of sexual innuendo. It's full of poor, almost sort of badly written biopic-y songs. It was done in a 2-week period because while he was still with Maiden, he was approached to do by a company that was making the Nightmare on Elm Street 5 movie, which is an absolute stinker of a movie, and was approached them that he would do a song for the album, and he wrote Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, right, which he then went on to use with Maiden and got a number 1 with it. But after recording the song, they said, oh, do you want to make an album? And he's like, Zomba Music said, you want to make an album? He's like, yeah, sounds like a good idea. And then recorded it and mixed it in 2 weeks, because at that particular time he was busy touring with Maiden, and I don't think he felt very comfortable doing solo stuff, although he was in that time having sort of issues with the band. Been together so long, it's sort of a lover's tiff, you know what I mean? And he released Tattooed Millionaire. Now, I and myself and Matt, as I mentioned earlier, both think this is number 1, and I'll tell you why we both think it's number 1. We both think it's number 1, like I'm going to say to 99% of these listeners of this program who've got this album, who are of my age and my generation. It's because what it means to us. I was 17 when this came out, and I had a new album. I had an album to go and buy in a time of metal blandness. All right, it was the early 90s, right, 1990, and there was such blandness in music. The bloody Nirvana was riding the waves with their shooting fish in a barrel, staring at my toes, woe is me kind of music. That wasn't goth and wasn't, new wave. It was just grunge, and I don't like grunge, you know that. And electronic was taken over again. Pop music was king. There was all sorts of crap. It was so mind-bogglingly bland. No metal was dying. Heavy rock was dying. Real music was taking a turn again into that sort of early 80s synth stuff. And then you had your which I don't mind. You had your sort of Brit-pop stuff coming through, and at least that was fairly listenable. So out comes, there was no prog. I mean, absolutely no prog. For a prog lover, it was a dead era, and out comes this album with, I went and bought it from Our Price, Brent Cross. I remember going the day and buying it. I remember taking the cover, because you used to take the cover because there was no record in it. you take the cover up to the counter and they would go and get the record for you. And I went to get it and handed them the cover and they couldn't find the vinyl. And I was absolutely distraught. I was like, what do you mean you can't find the vinyl? And they couldn't find it. So I bought the cassette instead. And I went back and bought the vinyl the following week with my next week's wage. And I earned bugger all, two-fifths of fuck all I earned, and I gave most of that to my mum. So if I bought records or cassettes or vinyl, it was mostly an entire wage. Yeah, basically. And I bought the cassette, took it home, played it, walked around the streets listening to it, listened to the singles off of it. We have look, people. I've had friends of mine who are dyed-in-the-wool Wolf Maiden fans who tell me that they think it's a stinker of an album, that it's childish, that it feels like it's written by just poorly written, and I absolutely deny that 110%. Yes, you do have songs that sometimes you might think better turn that down a bit, but like Dive, right? Yes, it's about oral sex. Yes, it's about it's got things like semen stains mentioned in it, and climb aboard, and gonna blow your load and all that stuff. But so what? So no, he that's Brucey all over. I mean, it sounds to me, this album, it sounds right back to when he was with Samson. And, I mentioned this before, early New Album albums had a lot of that kind of cringeworthy sort of sexism in the music. And yes, it sort of is a little bit cringeworthy sometimes. And, yes, it does feel a little bit childish, but then you get brilliant songs like Tattooed Millionaire, which is basically a biopic. And he was born in 58, Brucey, in a mining town, where his parents were teenagers, and so when he was conceived and born, his mum was a shoe shop worker and his father was a mechanic in the army, and his grandparents raised him because they were too young to raise him. And then when they raised enough money and did well buying property, they sent him to a public school where he learnt to fence and learned English and fine art, and saw bands like Van der Graaf Generator and Arthur Brown. And I forgot to mention that Arthur Brown, the amazing Arthur Brown, the song Fire, Fire, the crazy one, he's got a hat on and he sets his hair alight. He's on 3 tracks on Chemical Wedding, right? Lovely synergy there, right? Coming full circle, right? He saw Jethro Tull while he was at school. They played at the school's local music hall for the kids. He was in a band in school that was inspired by them. And so, he's come out and he's telling the world on his first solo album, this is what he could have come out and been he could have done Chemical Wedding, he could have done Accident of Birth, he could have done Balls to Picasso, he could have done all those. Tyranny of Souls as his first solo album, but no, he wanted to come out and have fun. It was a bit of throwaway music, produced in 2 weeks, when most Maiden albums were produced over months and months and months. Mixture of new musicians he's never played with. He didn't want to play metal. None of it's metal on this album. It's all rock and roll. It's all hard rock, which is his first love. Okay, listening to Chubby Checker, persuading his parents to buy him Chubby Checker singles, do the twist and stuff when he was young, listening to it in his kitchen with his mum and dad looking on him in complete weird, what's this music you're listening to? And so, he's basically just finding his groove. He's got a wonderful rendition of All the Young Dudes, the Mott the Hoople song that was made popular by David Bowie. He does a very good version of it. In fact, it's so good that I actually like it over the original. And really, that's a very big call. And I'm sure there are Bowie fans out there going, what are you talking about, you old idiot? But I just like it. I like the way it's placed in the album order. I like the way that the guitar comes in. It's Bruce Dickinson, and it's homage to a wonderful singer and a wonderful song, because it is actually a brilliant song. All the Young Dudes. It sort of sits in its time and place beautifully. And really, if you, and this is why I say it's his runaway album, his leave home album, because it's his dirty little secrets. It's what he loves to listen to. Probably it's what he wanted to make. He wanted a bit of fun, and I think it was also a kind of nod to the I don't know, the literal thickness and wordiness of Maiden. I think he just wanted to write a rock and roll song that he could play live quite easily. He could record quickly. The track lineup. I'll give you the track lineup. You should all know it by now anyway. It didn't do well in the charts. I mean, it did okay. It didn't do spectacular, but as I said, it was that sort of time when it was rock and roll and heavy metal, heavy rock was really not chartable music. Hell on Wheels, first track. Again, you could just imagine this is his influence of watching On the Waterfront as a kid, rebellious movies like If and so on. Just like leather-clad rock and rollers, like what rock and roll was originally about, right? Then Son of a Gun. This is another. I really love the lyric on Son of a Gun. It's fun. It makes me smile. I listen to it. I can sing along to it. It's a brilliant album and track for when you're doing stuff around the house, when you're gardening, when you're just walking to work. It just lifts you for the day, right? And then we jump into All the Young Dudes, right? Which is followed brilliantly by Gypsy Road. Gypsy Road is one of those songs where people say, oh, it's so weak. I don't like that. It's a middle of the album song. I disagree. I think the way the guitar works on this, I think this is Roy Z again on this. And it's just got this lovely laconic kind of softness to its rock and roll. And then Tattoo Millionaire, the leading single, which again, I think is a brilliant. It's him saying, "I don't feel comfortable. I'm not comfortable with this business, right? I could have fenced for England. I like literature and warplanes and flying and RAF stuff because his family, but he's only one generation away from the war, and his grandfather would have, like mine, fought in the war. His father wasn't far away from that sort of thing either. The Great War, anyway. It's the First and Second World War. And then you've got Born in 58, which is the biopic song. Okay, about born in a mining town in 58 when black and white records were up to date. Sorry, black and white TV was up to date. And then we go from that right to a bit of real fun, right? We've had some fun we've been laconic. We've had fun at the beginning with Hell on Wheels. And then Zulu Lulu. I just love the way it goes. Zulu Lulu, woo! It's just, again, why not? Why not let your hair down, Brucey, and have a little bit of a party, right? Can't always be so bloody serious. And then we come to Dive, 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 which is, okay, 2 songs on the album that my good friend Dave, big Iron Maiden fan, really dislikes. And look, I can see where this album would be politically incorrect now, but what's wrong with just being a teenage fun? And it is teenage fun, right? So I've talked about it before. It is basically about oral sex, dive, 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 semen stains, go down below, all that stuff, waiting to discharge, all that, tight panted, rock and rolled, groupie stuff, right? Why not, And then you get No Lies, which is it changes tempo, which is another just right. No lies, no angels, no heaven. It's just saying that everything it's all in your head basically, and also saying I don't know what his marital state was like then. I'm not looking to I have to look into his biography again, but he may have been going through something. And it just feels like he's having a bit of fun with this one, trying to be a little bit smart with the lyric, but it's just, again, a great piece of... It feels Americana. The album does have an Americana feel to it. And when I say that, I mean it could sit quite comfortably in a Lynyrd Skynyrd, Def Leppard-y thing of the time. It is a real album of its time. Is it dated? Possibly. Do I care? Do I fuck? No. If that's the case, it dates me and I don't care, because I just, like Matt, like a lot of people, it's just a point in time where you go, fuck, I was fucking happy then. It was just great, Every other day, every other week, there was something to listen, something to find. I was learning and finding new stuff all the time, and it was a brilliant time of my life. And then we get to the last song on the track, Licking the Gun. Now, Licking the Gun is only short. Again, it can only be oral sex, my friends. Whereas Dive, Dive, Dive is man on woman, Licking the Gun is obviously the other way around. Not as obviously lyrically offensive, if you want to take it that way. I don't think it's an offensive at all. But, lyrics are licking gun, ficking licking good, I mean, I don't know whether you could write that now. Sorry, I scratched my ear. Oh, these headphones make my ears a little bit hot. I don't think you could write that now. Well, you probably could. And it's Bruce, he could probably get away with it. But I think he's aged enough not to do things like that anymore. I would love to see it sung live. I've got live versions of it. And it's a classic, isn't it? I mean, come on, why not? As I said, it's that teenage album. It's the runaway plastic bag full of clothes, a sandwich that you've made quickly, some beer money, and maybe some money for a ticket, a train to get away. You've had enough of your dad's bullshit. Mum's just cowering in dad's drunken shadow, and you think, I'm just going. And I've talked about this before, and we'll bring it down, but it's how my brother left home, and it's something, and probably why my brother left home, and I haven't seen him for 40 years, and I think it's 40 years. It keeps changing, but I was 10 turning 11, so yeah, it's 39 years. Anyway, doesn't matter. I think that's why I quite like this album, because he was brave enough to do what he wanted to do, whether it was the right thing or wrong thing. And I think this album says it all. It's brave enough for Bruce to do it. He could have not done it. He could have done, as I said, gone straight to Chemical Wedding. He had the ability. He had the nous and the connections, but he didn't. He went out there and had his runaway moment, his regression teenage year moment, right? And why not? Now, the album that you're thinking, right, great, Tony, that's wonderful. But what's this album that you didn't talk about? I don't know it. Well, I'm not going to say much about it. I'm not going to go in depth track by track on it, because it's an album that I sort of don't like. But after reading about what happened while he was making it, I feel very sad, because he made his third solo album, his Skunk Works. Right? Now, Skunk Works... what do I say? What can I say about Skunk Works? So he wanted to have a new band. Now, just a band called Skunk Works. He wanted a band. He wanted to stop being just Bruce Dickinson, and he wanted to be in a band. Pardon me. And he... Let me get some tea. Sorry, guys. And he put his heart and soul into it, and he sort of got, pushed back by record labels, by musicians. It wasn't a great time for him, sadly. Right in the middle of his solo career, it's too nu metal-y for me. It's too undirected, loose. I don't quite know what it is. And please, I'd be really happy for anyone to write in or reply to this show and tell me what I'm missing on it. I'd love to know exactly why I don't know why I don't like it. I said it to Matt when we were talking about the top fives. I did say I'm avoiding Skunkworks. It's not going to go in the top five. It'll be an honourable mention. It's okay. It's part of his canon. It has the occasional moment on it. I don't know. Sorry, Bruce, if you ever listen to this. I know it meant a lot to you. But, songs like Space Race and Solar Confinement and Dream State, I Will Not Accept the Truth, Inside the Machine, Octavia, Strange Death in Paradise. If I have to pick a song off the album, the ending song, Strange Death in Paradise, is probably the one I really like the most. I just think it's a bit wayward. It's that third album, probably on a contractual thing, got to make an album, got to get it out, got to keep touring. Maybe he was in two minds before he was going back to join Maiden. Maybe he was a bit lost. I don't know. I really don't know. I'll read you some things just about it so that you can make up your own mind, okay? It was released in 96. So it was a year that I wasn't... I'll tell you why. 96 was a tough year for me. We had just had our first child born. I was working every hour that God sent. I wasn't putting money in or thought into my musical... I had too much to think about. I was working night and day shifts. We were preparing to emigrate to Australia. Well, I was preparing to emigrate to Australia. It was just a tough time, and I really just I did not connect with this album at all. It's a good length, 47 minutes, 29 seconds. I don't know. It's too much alternative metal for me. It does sound a bit like Rush, which I like, but it also is a bit too Soundgarden-y. It's a bit too Nirvana, very grungy. I mean, is he riding the waves slightly? He probably is. I don't know. He's not a big... He doesn't throw faith a lot behind it. It's an album that I think is forgotten slightly, like some of the Rob Halford solo albums, which I shall be talking about next week. That's a sneak preview, guys. I'm doing a top 5 Rob Halford solo albums next week, so do come back for that. But please don't just take my word for it. If you really want to give Skunkworks a listen, do give it a listen. It's got some brilliant musicians on it. It's I don't know. It just is a bit cold. I don't like the cut. I don't like the artwork of it. I think it's misdirected. It's poor. I'm going to say that. I love Bruce Dickinson with all my heart. Really, musically means a lot to me and to a lot of us. But not everything he shits is gold, guys, is it? Right? So, it is what it is. You have to be honest. I want to be honest in this program. Not everything can be like gold. Anyway, not leaving this on a negative view. That was my top 5 with my honourable mention number 6. What's yours? I'd love to know. Like I said, I had trouble with 3 through to 1. 1 was always going to be 1. Always. So maybe 3 to... The third and second spot were tricky. Very, very tricky. In fact, 4 to 2 were tricky. Because, Chemical Wedding is astonishingly fantastic. It was, an unbelievable piece of modern metal. Really is. Progressive metal, particularly, is one of the sort of leading albums in that area. Accident of Birth gets me going, gets my juices flowing. But every time I want a bit of fun, on goes Tattooed Millionaire. And I am 17 again with my first pay packet, going to buy it at our price Brent Cross. And those that don't know where Brent Cross is, it's North London. I grew up behind it. It was England's first major indoor shopping centre. I spent most of my mistimed youth running around the car park, playing British Bulldog and scaring the shit out of people. We used to get the, drink boxes. They're called poppers over in Australia, but juice cartons. We used to, with the straw, we drink out of them, then we blow them up, all full of air in a row, put them all in a row, and 3 or 4 of us would jump on them at the same time in the multi-story car park. It'd make a bang so loud we'd get chased by the security guards, and the game ended if you got caught by one. I never got caught. I was always fast enough to leg it, but there was always a couple of us that got caught. Let's just say it was the time before they'd call the police, so these security guards would give you a damn good smack. And you couldn't go back to the mum and dad and tell you'd been hit by someone, because mum and dad would hit you as well. So it was just justice then. And it was a fun way of passing a Sunday morning. Well, that's me for this week. Keep rocking, keep rolling. Thanks for listening. Do enjoy listening to Brucey's solo career. Cannot wait for his next one to come out. The Mandrake Project, I think it's called. I could be wrong. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure he's going to drop singles here and there. I'm probably going to do the right thing and not listen to the singles, because I want to just hear the album in full. But I cannot sometimes keep away from my promises. Might have to drip feed myself into that one. Anyway, let's hope he tours over here in Australia. Let's hope he tours wherever you are in the world. Let's hope Maiden gets to us soon. No, fingers crossed. Is this going to be his last solo album? Is this last hurrah? If it is, let's hope it's another Tattooed Millionaire for us all. And somewhere out there is 16 or 17 with their first piece of money and they're buying an album. And let's hope it's their first album and they can look back in 40 years, 36 years and go, shit, yeah, that's what it means to me and to everyone else. Anyway, bye for now. Keep rocking. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.